The Stardust Wanderer rattled like a trapped beast, its aging hull groaning in protest against the Leviathan's docking clamps. Jax stood in the dim light of the cramped command deck, one hand gripping a railing as if his sheer will alone could hold the ship together. The faint, rhythmic shudder of the core thrummed beneath his boots, a tenuous lifeline keeping them tethered to the edge of functionality. "It's holding, barely," Kira muttered, her voice sharp as a scalpel. Her nimble fingers danced over the flickering controls of her station, recalibrating a sensor array that kept shorting out. Her black hair clung to her sweat-dampened forehead, and her eyes, those rebellious, fire-lit eyes, burned with the irritation of someone itching for action. "But this crate's got about as much fight left as a sunburned iceworm. You sure you don't want me to sweet-talk us a better ride next time, Captain?" Jax shot her a look, his scarred face a roadmap of exhaustion and authority. "This ship's gotten us in and out of places that would have left you atoms floating in a nebula," he growled. "She'll do the job. So will you." Across the cramped bridge, Torvin's booming laugh echoed like distant thunder. The massive man leaned back against a bulkhead, one hand resting on the polished hilt of his vibro-axe. "Kira, you're always itching for a new toy. How about we finish this job first, and then we'll talk upgrades?" Assuming we're all still breathing. "Big assumption," Kira snapped, but her grin betrayed her. She thrived in moments like this. Tension simmering, danger mounting, the promise of chaos just around the corner. "Enough," Jax said, his tone cutting through the banter like a blade. He stepped forward, his presence commanding, his voice a low rumble that filled the space. "Plan's the same. We breach Sector Gamma, grab the data core, and get out. Fast, clean, no detours. No one gets left behind." His eyes swept over the crew, lingering on each of them as if trying to anchor them to his will. "The Dominion's got this place locked tighter than Torvin's ration stash. We don't stick to the plan, we die. Clear?" "Clear as a neutron star," Torvin said, clapping a hand the size of a dinner plate on Jax's shoulder. "We've got this." Kira gave a mock salute but didn't meet Jax's gaze. Her defiance simmered just below the surface, but for now, she kept it in check. "What about him?" Kira jerked her thumb toward the shadowed corner of the room. Along sat there, as still as a statue, his head tilted slightly as if listening to a voice no one else could hear. His long, slender fingers methodically sharpened the edge of a sleek vibroblade. The faint glow of the blade reflected in his unsettling, iridescent eyes. Eyes that seemed to hold secrets older than the stars. "What about him?" Jax asked, his voice flat. "You don't think that whatever's going on with him is going to be a problem?" Along's gaze snapped to her, his lips curling into the faintest of smiles. "No deviations," he murmured, his voice a melodic whisper that sent a chill down Kira's spine. "Ever." Kira's mouth tightened into a thin line, but she said nothing. Torvin gave her a look, a silent warning not to push further. Jax, for his part, chose to ignore the exchange. He'd seen Alalong's strange moments, the flashes of power that defied explanation, but he'd also seen the man's unwavering loyalty. Whatever Along was, he was theirs. For now. A sharp chime echoed through the ship, followed by the metallic clang of the docking sequence completing. Jax straightened, his gloved hand brushing the hilt of his pulse rifle. "That's our cue. Kira, you're our eyes. Torvin, you're our shield. Along, stay in the shadows. Let's move." The hatch hissed open, revealing the cold, sterile expanse of the Leviathan beyond. The Dominion warship loomed like a tomb, its vast corridors silent but oppressive, a labyrinth of steel and shadow. The air was heavy, recycled to the point of sterility, carrying a faint metallic tang that set Jax's nerves on edge. Kira took point, her blaster at the ready, her movements smooth and confident. Jax followed close behind, every step a careful calculation. Torvin's massive frame brought up the rear, his armored boots thudding against the floor, each step a promise of protection. Along slipped into the shadows, his presence barely a whisper, a phantom trailing the group. They moved in silence, the hum of the Leviathan's engines a low, constant reminder of the Dominion's power. Jax's eyes darted to the tactical display on his wrist, the schematics of the warship glowing faintly in the dim light. Sector Gamma was 2 decks down and 3 corridors over. So far, no sign of resistance. But Jax knew better than to trust the quiet. The Dominion didn't leave their treasures unguarded. As they rounded a corner, Kira froze, raising a hand to signal a halt. Jax edged forward, his heart pounding, his pulse rifle at the ready. 2 Dominion guards stood ahead, their black armor gleaming like polished obsidian, their weapons held with lethal precision. "How do you want to play this?" Kira whispered, her voice barely audible. Jax considered their options. The plan was stealth, but there was no avoiding this. He glanced at Kira, then at Torvin. "Quick and quiet," he said. Kira's grin returned, sharp and predatory. "My favorite." 2 crimson bolts of energy erupted from her blaster, each shot finding its mark with surgical precision. The guards crumpled silently to the floor, the faint smell of ozone hanging in the air. Torvin stepped forward, his massive frame blocking the view as he hauled the bodies into an alcove. "Efficient as ever," he muttered. "Don't sound so surprised," Kira said. But her voice carried a note of unease, her bravado faltering for just a moment. Jax caught the crack in her armor but said nothing. It couldn't afford to slow down. "Not here, not now. Keep moving," he ordered, his voice a low growl. "We're not out of the woods yet." They pressed on, the tension coiling tighter with every step, the air thick with the weight of anticipation. Jax felt the familiar knot of dread settle in his gut, a warning he'd learned never to ignore. Something was waiting for them, something they weren't ready for. Chapter 2. Fault Lines. The silence in the Leviathan was oppressive, broken only by the faint hum of its engines. Every step the crew took echoed down the long, sterile corridors, a constant reminder of how exposed they were. Kira led the way, her every movement a calculated blend of precision and confidence. She scanned the path ahead, her eyes sharp and alert, but her mind churned with suspicion. Behind her, Jax stayed close, the weight of the mission pressing down on his shoulders. His gaze flicked between the tactical display on his wrist and the path ahead, every decision a careful balance of risk and reward. He could feel the tension building in his crew, an invisible pressure that threatened to crack the thin veneer of unity. Torvin brought up the rear, his massive frame a comforting presence despite the unease gnawing at the edges of his mind. His axe, strapped across his back, was a reassuring weight, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. "Sector Gamma should be just ahead," Jax whispered, his voice barely more than a breath. "Kira, hold up." Kira stopped, turning to face him. "What's the problem?" she asked, her voice sharper than she intended. "The schematics don't match this section," Jax said, his brow furrowing. He tapped his wrist display, frustration creeping into his voice. "The Dominion must have restructured the layout. We'll need to adjust." "Or it's a trap," Kira muttered, crossing her arms. "You ever consider that? They might be expecting us." Jax's jaw tightened. "It doesn't matter. We stick to the mission." Kira's eyes narrowed, her distrust bubbling to the surface. "You're so focused on the mission that you're ignoring the obvious." "This feels wrong, Jax. Every instinct I have is screaming at me to pull back." "We don't have the luxury of second-guessing," Jax shot back, his tone firm. "The data core is critical. Without it, we're dead in the water. You knew the risks when you signed up." Torvin stepped between them, his massive hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Easy, you two," he said, his deep voice a calming presence. "Fighting each other isn't going to help. Let's focus on getting through this alive." Kira glared at Jax for a moment longer before letting out a sharp breath. "Fine, but if this goes sideways, I'm saying I told you so." Jax nodded curtly, already turning back to the path ahead. "Noted. Torvin, watch our 6. Along, keep to the shadows." From the darkness, Along's voice drifted, soft and unnervingly calm. "Always." They pressed on, the tension thick enough to choke on. The corridors twisted and turned, the sterile metal walls all blending together, creating a disorienting maze. Kira couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Her hand tightened around her blaster, her every muscle coiled like a spring. When they reached a junction, Jax raised a hand to signal a stop. 3 corridors stretched out before them, each identical to the last. The tactical display offered no clarity, the schematics corrupted or incomplete. "We need to split up," Jax said, his voice low and firm. "Kira, take the left path. Torvin, the right. I'll go center with Along. We regroup at the next junction." Kira's lips pressed into a thin line. "Splitting up? Really? It's the fastest way to locate Sector Gamma," Jax said. "And speed is our only advantage right now." "Speed won't matter if we're picked off one by one," Kira argued. Torvin placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll be fine. We've handled worse." Reluctantly, Kira nodded and moved toward the left corridor, her blaster at the ready. Torvin gave Jax a firm nod before heading down the right path, his heavy footsteps fading into the distance. Jax glanced at Alung, whose iridescent eyes glimmered faintly in the dim light. Together, they took the center path, their footsteps eerily quiet against the cold metal floor. The further they went, the darker the corridor became. Jax's unease grew with each step, his grip tightening on his pulse rifle. Along moved silently beside him, his presence more unsettling than reassuring. The faint hum of the ship's engine seemed to shift, a low, almost predatory growl vibrating through the walls. "Something's wrong," Jax muttered, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Stay sharp." Along's lips curled into a faint smile. "Always." They rounded a corner and froze. Ahead of them, the corridor ended abruptly, a massive, sealed bulkhead blocking the way. The air was heavy with the scent of ozone, and the faint flicker of blue light danced along the edges of the door. "The core is behind that door," Jax said, his voice a mix of determination and dread. "But this isn't on the schematics." Along stepped forward, his iridescent eyes narrowing as he studied the door. "It's not Dominion," he murmured. "Something else is here." Chapter 3. The Unseen Threat. The bulkhead loomed before Jax and Along, its surface pulsing faintly with an otherworldly blue glow. It wasn't Dominion, Jax knew that much. The Dominion was cold, efficient, and soulless. This was alive, or something close to it. The hum of the Leviathan's engines had taken on an eerie cadence here, a low, almost organic resonance that seemed to vibrate in his chest. Jax raised his pulse rifle, motioning for Adalong to stay back. "This wasn't in the plan," he muttered, his voice tight. "Plans rarely survive the first contact with the unknown," Along replied, his tone calm, almost amused. He stepped closer to the bulkhead, his iridescent eyes narrowing as he studied it. "It reacts to us." "That's not reassuring," Jax said, scanning the corridor behind them. His instincts screamed at him to turn back, regroup with Kira and Torvin, but the thought of leaving this mystery unanswered tugged at him. If the core was behind that door, it was too valuable to abandon. Along raised a hand toward the bulkhead, and the faint glow intensified, the blue light spilling onto the corridor walls like liquid fire. The hum deepened, resonating through the floor. "It's a gateway," Along murmured, his voice almost reverent. "It's not just a door." Jax grabbed Along's arm before he could touch the surface. "Don't. We don't know what's on the other side." Along turned to him, and for a moment, there was something alien in his expression. A flicker of curiosity, or perhaps something darker. "Knowledge doesn't come without risk, Captain." Before Jax could respond, his wrist comm crackled to life, Kira's voice sharp and urgent. "Jax, we've got a problem." "What kind of problem?" Jax asked, already moving back down the corridor with Alung close behind. "The kind that shoots first and doesn't bother asking questions?" Kira snapped. The sound of blaster fire echoed faintly over the comm. "Dominion patrols, lots of them. Torvin and I are pinned down." "Hold your position," Jax said, his pulse quickening. "We're coming to you." "We don't have long," Kira warned, her breath ragged. "They're closing in fast." Jax switched off the comm and broke into a jog, his rifle raised. Along followed silently, his movements unnaturally smooth. The hum of the bulkhead faded as they moved deeper into the ship, replaced by the sharp echoes of distant combat. Jax's mind raced. The mission was spiraling out of control, every step plunging them deeper into chaos. They found Kira and Torvin in a narrow corridor, their backs pressed against a bulkhead as crimson energy bolts ricocheted off the walls around them. Torvin's vibroaxe was gripped tightly in one hand, his other arm raised to shield Kira as she fired at the advancing Dominion soldiers. "About time," Kira shouted as Jax and Along ducked into cover beside them. "We're a little outnumbered here." Jax peeked around the corner, counting at least a dozen soldiers advancing in tight formation. Their black armor gleamed under the harsh lights, their weapons spitting deadly streams of energy. "We need to fall back," he said, firing off a quick shot that struck one of the soldiers in the chest. "We can't hold this position." "No argument here," Torvin said, his voice a deep rumble. He swung his axe in a wide arc, deflecting a bolt that had been aimed at Kira. "We passed a junction 2 corridors back," Jax said. "We'll regroup there." Kira hesitated, her eyes flicking to Along. "What about him? Any chance he's got a trick up his sleeve?" Along tilted his head, his iridescent eyes catching the light. "Perhaps." Before Jax could stop him, Along stepped into the corridor, his hands raised. The Dominion soldiers hesitated, their weapons trained on him, as the air around him seemed to ripple. A low hum emanated from Alalong, growing louder with each passing second. The light in the corridor flickered and dimmed, shadows twisting unnaturally. The soldiers opened fire, but the bolts of energy dissolved in midair, dissipating into shimmering fragments before they could reach him. Along raised one hand, and a pulse of energy erupted from him, sweeping down the corridor like a tidal wave. The soldiers were thrown back, their armor sparking as they crumpled to the ground. Kira stared, her blaster lowering slightly. "What the hell was that? Something you shouldn't trust," she muttered under her breath. Jax ignored her, focusing on Along. "You're going to explain what's happening to you, and you're going to do it now." Along turned to him, his expression unreadable. "Later, Captain. If we survive." Jax clenched his jaw but didn't argue. "Move. Now." They retreated through the labyrinthine corridors, the tension between them crackling like static electricity. Kira's distrust of Along simmered beneath the surface, her sharp glances and muttered comments adding fuel to the fire. Torvin, ever the peacekeeper, stayed silent, his focus on protecting the team. When they reached the junction, Jax brought them to a halt. He glanced at Kira and Torvin, both breathing hard but still standing. Along was unscathed, his eerie calm unsettling in the aftermath of the fight. "We need to rethink this," Kira said, her voice tight. "That bulkhead you found? Whatever's behind it, it's not worth dying for." "We can't walk away," Jax said, his tone firm. "That core could be the key to everything. Or it could be what gets us all killed," Kira snapped. "You saw what happened back there. The Dominion's crawling all over this place. And him," she gestured at Along, "he's a wild card we can't afford." Along said nothing, his gaze fixed on the corridor ahead. Jax felt the weight of the crew's eyes on him, the fragile threads of their unity threatening to unravel. "We push forward," Jax said finally. "Together. No one gets left behind." Kira's expression hardened, but she didn't argue. Torvin nodded, his loyalty to Jax unshaken. Along stepped into the shadows, his presence a silent reminder of the unknown forces at play. As they moved deeper into the Leviathan, Jax couldn't shake the feeling that they were being herded, drawn towards something they didn't understand. The bulkhead and its strange blue light lingered in his mind, a warning and a promise of the secrets to come. Chapter 4. Into the Abyss. The corridors of the Leviathan grew colder as the team pressed on. The usual sterile Dominion architecture gave way to something older, stranger. The walls seemed less like manufactured steel, and more like something organic, as if the ship itself had been reshaped by an alien hand. Jax felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end, a primal instinct warning him they were entering a place that did not belong to them. The tension among the crew was palpable. Kira's distrust of Alung simmered just below the surface, and Torvin's usual jovial demeanor was replaced with a somber focus. Along, as always, was an enigma, his movements unnervingly precise, his iridescent eyes scanning the shadows as if he could see things the others could not. "Let's get one thing straight," Kira said, her voice cutting through the heavy silence. "If this goes sideways because of him," she jabbed a thumb in Along's direction, "I'm not going down without a fight." Along didn't turn to face her. "Your distrust is noted, Kira, but I am not the enemy here." "Not yet," Kira muttered, her grip tightening on her blaster. "Enough!" Jax snapped, his voice low but sharp. "We're too far in to start tearing each other apart? Keep it together." Kira opened her mouth to retort but thought better of it. She fell back into silence, though the fire in her eyes hadn't dimmed. They reached the next chamber, a vast open space that defied the ship's otherwise utilitarian design. The walls curved inward, glowing faintly with the same blue light they had seen at the bulkhead. Strange symbols pulsed along the surface, shifting patterns that seemed almost alive. At the center of the room, a pedestal rose from the floor, cradling a crystalline orb that pulsed with a hypnotic rhythm. "The core," Jax whispered, stepping forward. His pulse rifle remained raised, but his eyes were fixed on the artifact. "It's not Dominion," Torvin said, his deep voice tinged with unease. "I don't like this, Jax. Feels wrong." "We're here for it," Jax said, his voice steady despite the knot in his gut. "If we don't take it, the Dominion will. And whatever this is, it's better in our hands than theirs." Kira frowned. "How do we even know we can move it? Or what it'll do if we try?" "I'll find out," Along said, stepping forward. "No," Jax said sharply, raising a hand to stop him. "We don't know what effect it'll have on you." Along turned, his gaze locking with Jax's. "It's already affecting me, Captain. I can feel it." I may be the only one who can interact with it safely. Or the one it'll use to kill us, Kira muttered. Stop, Jax said, his voice brooking no argument. He turned to Along. You touch that thing without my order, and we're done. Understood? Along hesitated, then nodded. Understood. Jax moved closer to the pedestal, keeping his rifle at the ready. The orb pulsed faster as he approached, its glow intensifying. A low hum filled the chamber, resonating in his bones. He reached out cautiously, his gloved fingers brushing the surface of the artifact. A sudden burst of light engulfed the room, and Jax was thrown backward, hitting the ground hard. The others rushed to his side as the artifact's glow stabilized, now pulsing in sync with a deep, rhythmic vibration that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. Captain! Torvin's voice boomed as he helped Jax to his feet. You okay? Jax shook his head, his vision swimming. I'm fine. Don't touch it. It's connected to the ship. No kidding, Kira said, her voice laced with sarcasm. She turned her blaster toward the orb. We blow it and get out of here. No! Along's voice cut through the room like a blade. He stepped forward, his eyes glowing with a faint blue light that mirrored the artifact's rhythm. If you destroy it, you'll destroy us all. Kira raised her blaster, pointing it at Along. That's it. I've had enough of this cryptic crap. What's going on with you? I don't fully understand it, Along admitted, his voice calm but resonant. But this artifact isn't just a core. It's a beacon, a link to something far beyond the Dominion or this ship. And you expect us to trust you with that? Kira snapped. You're already glowing like it owns you. Stand down, Kira, Jax said, stepping between them. He turned to Along. If it's a beacon, who or what is it calling? Along hesitated, his gaze distant. Something ancient, something that was here long before us. The chamber trembled, the hum of the artifact rising to a deafening pitch. The symbols on the walls flared brighter, their shifting patterns accelerating. Jax's comm crackled to life, a distorted voice breaking through. Warning! Foreign energy signature detected. Containment breach imminent. That doesn't sound good, Torvin muttered. Jax gritted his teeth. We need to move. Kira, Torvin, secure the perimeter. Along, stay close and keep your hands off that thing. The crew fanned out, their weapons raised as the room continued to tremble. The glow of the artifact intensified, and Jax felt a cold dread settle over him. Whatever they had stumbled into, it was far beyond the scope of their mission. Suddenly the trembling stopped. The artifact emitted a single, piercing note, and the air grew still. What just happened? Kira asked, her voice low. Before anyone could answer, a deep, resonant voice echoed through the chamber, not from the comms, but from the walls themselves. You are not the first. You will not be the last. Jax's blood ran cold. The voice was neither human nor Dominion. It was ancient, vast, and filled with a chilling certainty. The chamber plunged into darkness, the artifact's glow the only source of light. Then, from the shadows, shapes began to emerge. Tall, angular figures of shimmering energy, their forms shifting and fluid. Kira's blaster was up in an instant. Jax, what the hell are those? I don't know, Jax said, his voice barely above a whisper. But they're not friendly. The shapes began to advance, their movements silent but deliberate. Jax raised his rifle, his heart pounding. Everyone, fall back. Now! The crew retreated toward the corridor, the figures closing in with an otherworldly grace. As they moved, the artifact pulsed again, and Jax felt a pull, like a thread tugging at the edge of his mind. Whatever was happening, the artifact wasn't done with them yet. Chapter 5. The Shattering Edge. The glowing figures advanced, their fluid, angular forms shifting with every step. The artifact's hum grew louder, a low, bone-deep resonance that vibrated through Jax's chest. The corridor behind them was their only escape route, but even as Jax shouted for retreat, he knew running would not be enough. Move! He barked, his pulse rifle raised. Torvin, cover the rear! Torvin swung his vibro axe in a wide arc, his massive frame blocking the corridor as Kira and Along sprinted ahead. Energy bolts crackled from Jax's rifle, tearing through the air toward the advancing shapes. The shots dissipated harmlessly, swallowed by the figures as if they were made of smoke. Nothing's hitting them, Kira shouted, her voice rising above the deafening hum. We're dead if we stay here. We're dead if we don't figure out what they want. Jax fired again, but it was futile. The glowing figures ignored the assault, their presence unshakable. Along had stopped running, his gaze fixed on the artifact behind the advancing shapes. His glowing eyes mirrored the artifact's rhythm, as though he were attuned to its alien frequency. Along, Jax roared. Keep moving! No, Along replied, his voice eerily calm. I understand now. Jax's stomach twisted. What are you talking about? The artifact isn't just a beacon, Along said, stepping toward the glowing figures. The air around him shimmered, bending like light through water. It's a key. Kira whipped around, her blaster still raised. A key to what? Death. Destruction? You going to explain any of this, or are we just supposed to watch you sacrifice yourself? Along ignored her, his hand reaching toward the nearest figure. The shimmering shape paused, its fluid form shifting as if acknowledging his presence. They're not here to kill us, Along said. They're here to protect what's on the other side. The artifact is their tether, and I'm the bridge. Bridge to where? Torvin demanded, his axe ready to swing. To understanding, Along replied. To something greater than us, Kira groaned. I don't know what's worse, the cryptic mumbo-jumbo or the fact that you actually believe it. The artifact flared, its blue lights surging and casting jagged shadows across the chamber. The glowing figures froze, their forms vibrating in place. Along turned to the others, his expression uncharacteristically soft. I can stop this, he said, but you have to trust me. You think that's happening after everything you've pulled? Kira snapped. She raised her blaster, her aim unwavering. You touch that thing, and we're done. Jax stepped between them, his hand outstretched. Kira, lower the weapon. Kira's eyes widened in disbelief. You can't be serious. You're siding with him? He hasn't hurt us, Jax said. If there's even a chance he can end this, we take it. Kira's jaw clenched, but she lowered the blaster, muttering under her breath. This is insane. Jax turned to Along, his voice steady. Do what you need to do. Along nodded and moved toward the artifact. The glowing figures parted, their shimmering forms rippling as he passed. The artifact pulsed brighter with each step he took, the hum now a deafening roar. Along reached the pedestal and placed both hands on the crystalline orb. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the room exploded with light. The artifact's glow surged outward, enveloping the chamber and the crew in a blinding wave. Jax felt himself lifted off the ground, weightless and suspended in a sea of light. Images flashed through his mind, planets engulfed in flame, ancient structures crumbling under the weight of time, and beings of pure energy drifting through the cosmos. A voice, vast and resonant, echoed in his thoughts. The bridges opened, balance restored. When the light faded, Jax found himself on the cold metal floor of the Leviathan, his head pounding. He struggled to his feet, his rifle still clutched in his hands. The chamber was dark now, the artifact gone. Along stood where the pedestal had been, his figure outlined by faint, flickering light. He turned to face them, his iridescent eyes dimmed but still glowing faintly. It's over, Along said softly. What the hell just happened? Kira demanded, her voice raw. What did you do? I closed the connection, Along said. The artifact was a conduit to a power older than the Dominion. It was never meant to be used by beings like us. I sent it back. And the glowing space ghosts? Torvin asked, his tone wary. Gone, Along replied. They were part of the artifact. Without it, they can't exist here. Kira holstered her blaster, her shoulders sagging. That was too close. Jack stepped forward, his gaze locked on Along. You've been hiding something from us this whole time. What are you? Along hesitated, his expression unreadable. I don't know, he admitted. But whatever I am, it was enough to stop this. That's not an answer, Jack said, his tone hard. It's the only one I have, Along replied. For now, the hum of the Leviathan's engines returned, steady and familiar. Jax glanced at his crew, Kira's defiance tempered by exhaustion, Torvin's steady presence a reassuring constant, and Along, the enigma at the heart of it all. Let's get out of here, Jax said finally. We've done enough damage for one day. The crew moved as one, retreating through the labyrinthine corridors. As they reached the Stardust Wanderer, Jax felt the weight of the mission settle heavily on his shoulders. They had survived, but the cost and the truth about Klong remained unanswered. As the Stardust Wanderer disengaged from the Leviathan and disappeared into the void, Jax couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was far from over. The artifact was gone, but its echoes lingered, a shadow stretching across the stars. Whatever lay ahead, Jax knew one thing for certain. Nothing in the universe would ever be the same.